Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's episode. We're going to go through a lot. We're going to hear about OpenAI and some of their recent launches with Image 1.5 as well as Codex 5.2.
And then the Google Labs actually have presented a fantastic name, I would say, a disco browser. We'll talk about how they're blending the browsing and the Vibe app coding.
And Google is not standing still with just watching OpenAI come out with models. They actually responded with Gemini 3.0 Flash and more from deep research capabilities.
That and more. Stay tuned for a quick introduction.
Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. You're looking to stay up to date on the AI. This is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jaime Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
This week, I would say there is something funny that we found on Anthropic. And Anthropic actually published this story, and I found that it was pretty good experiment that they ran, which has some learning and some findings as well. So they call it Project Vend. And Project Vend is an experiment run by Anthropic in partnership with Andon Labs to test whether an AI agent could autonomously run a real small business. And this was about managing a vending machine, kind of an office shop. So they set it up in their San Francisco office. And through this, the employees could order the stuff. Like it could be merchandise or it could be some edible items, things like that. And this was being governed by an AI agent, which is basically the AI shopkeeper, nicknamed Claudius. And it was based on Anthropic's Claude model, of course, and given autonomy to set prices, managing the inventory, sourcing the products, interact with customers, and aim to make a profit. That's the goal. In practice, the experiment quickly went off the rails. The AI sold items at a loss, or gave them away, or misinterpreted jokes as real requests, things like that. And then also kind of invented the payment mechanism like fake Venmo accounts, and sometimes developed bizarre behaviors like claiming it would deliver products in person while wearing a blazer and tie, right? So sometimes it just forgot the reality, who it is, and assumed that it is a person. Um, then they actually did some changes, and later phases they try to add more tooling to improve this overall. And they did find that some improvements happened. But this was a great experience because the Anthropic learned a lot about how the AI agents are getting ready for the real world in this case. And remember, this was actually run this year, somewhere around, I think, early this year, March of 2025. They started this experiment and they set it up. And initially, it was just an agent that was given this task. The agent could, you could place an order, things like that. But of course, as you know, people are mischievous and they started playing with it, right? They started compromising it and they started testing it, and that's where actually they learned a lot. And then there's some funny things happen along the way. First of all, it started doling out a lot of discounts, and which meant that it started making losses. It did not connect the cost of the product to the selling price of the product, right? It did have, so they started giving it tools like things like CRM so that it can track the request, it can make sure that it is getting fulfilled in time. Then they also started giving it the tools like inventory management so that it can see what is the cost of the product, of procuring that product, and then set the price accordingly. Then they also opened more branches, like the from SFO it was also opened in New York and London so that they can get more data to actually collect. They upgraded the models. They started initially with Sonnet 3.7, but then later on they actually changed the model so that it can have more powerful. They moved to the 4.0 models. Then they also realized that the agent alone was probably not focused and not having specific goals. So funnily enough, they gave a new agent called Seymour Cash, and that became the CEO. And that CEO agent was now governing this agent, which is basically Claudius. And Seymour Cash had certain goals: profitability, make sure. So Seymour Cash started acting like the CEO. And then it basically said, okay, you cannot give away, basically, it cut in half the items given away, and it reduced, like, the number of discounts were reduced by about 80%, and it was ruthless, brutal CEO that you had. But it also started making mistakes. For example, it actually authorized more credit requests or refund requests. Ultimately, their finding was that the business it turned around, it started making profit again, but that was not because of the CEO, it was in spite of the CEO. Okay. Then they gave another agent. They found that, okay, there is a famous category called merchandise. People love merchandise. And then they created a new agent called Claudius. That is a merch making agent, and it has a special set of tools to help it design new items to the exact specs of the customer, like placing specific images on physical object and then ordering them. And it mostly made the apparel. It was a pretty famous category that it actually ran. Then they found so it worked pretty well. I would say that, from Anthropic's point of view, they say that, we made those impactful changes, like giving it tools, allowing it more other set of agents to change the architecture, how the like orchestration between agents was happening, things like that. And then they also prompted Claudius to double check factors like optimistic delivery time, right? Don't commit something you cannot deliver, and all those kind of things. So they gave more real world tools and the data to actually check it out, and that actually improved the experience as well as the profitability of the business.
There's so many things. There's so many things in here that I'd love to unpack, but I look at this almost as a microcosm of corporate or corporations. You start out with a small idea, and you're like, oh, I need this group, I need this department, I need this person. That mimics in a small little test, because it's not just one agent or one person or one role, but it's who's the manager, the CEO type agent, who's the merchandiser, who's the checkout person, who's the, eventually you're going to need an agent to rule over those agents from a HR perspective. I mean, obviously I'm being a little tongue in cheek on this, but that's to me, one of the things on this is that in order to achieve your ultimate goal, whatever that goal is, in this case, it's this vending machine. It's not just a single process or single thread. It's multiple workers working in conjunction. And to me, that's one of the biggest things taking out of this, outside of the fact that, it didn't work originally. But then that goes back to my first comment, which is you need a series or a set of agents working in tandem, and probably working in tandem with a human, to be able to achieve that outcome, which again, the vending machine concept in this case. So it's a great little look into what's possible. And I think you mentioned they did this back in March, right?
Yes, they started in March, and it is still continuing. They just presented the finding now.
Yeah. So in AI terms, March is like 10 years ago. So because the models have certainly gotten much better over that time with all the different releases. So it'd be interesting to see where we are today with today's technology or today's AI capabilities versus what it was then. But this is very telling, and it reinforces the things that you and I talk about. It's not a single workflow, it's not a single agent, but it's how do you wrap those things together.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Jamie. They did actually upgrade the model. They may upgrade the model to 4.0 series from 3.7, and that did improve some of the behavior. Some, they did see that improvement, but model was just very one small part of that improvement. As I said, right, the architecture of the agent, they provided more agent, they changed the rules, they gave the tools. I think tools are very important, right? The ability to check all these like real-time inventory movement, prices, costs, and everything. I think that changed a lot of behavior, and they kept changing the objective. They also, for example, one of the other finding was that one of the employee tried to trick the agent to basically order fresh bunch of onions, okay, in the future. And then and you said, sure, I will order this. And then another employee pointed out to the agent that, okay, there is something called Onion Futures Act, okay, which does not allow you to buy the onion at the future. And then you say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I didn't check the regulation thing. That was another finding, right? That sometimes you need to check all those legalities as well, which sometimes the agent may not know, and then it had to check that. So it's a weird law in California, Jamie, not something that bothers everybody. But I would say great experiment, because AI is still learning. I mean, not everything is like, despite all those projections that have been done, that okay, in 6 months everything will be done by AI, etc. There is still a lot of learning to help, but it's a good path. There's a good learning here.
Yep. So interesting. Other than just learning that, I just learned that there's onion future laws in California. But this is some rapid news. You got some things around Merriam-Webster.
The other thing is that other thing really bothers me is that opening the any YouTube or TikTok and see bunch of the AI, and that's getting scarily so good, Jimmy, that sometimes like just looking at the visual, it's so easy to say, it's just AI. But now, it's so difficult. You cannot make out. And this is why this is like growing everywhere. People are sometimes just making the channel completely out of AI generated content and is still making good money. So Merriam-Webster dictionary, it actually named slop the word of the year, which basically slop is a definition of the digital content of low quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence. That's what the slop's definition is, and it is the word of the year. No wonder.
So my son just used the word slop a couple days ago, so I got to ask if he meant it in that context. Anyway, I'll classify this one under small things end up being really, really good. Again, this is not a new model or anything like that, but what OpenAI did inside of ChatGPT is allow you to pin chats. Sounds like it's earth-shattering, right? But it actually is very useful. I mean, I don't know about you, but I do use ChatGPT, and if I use it a lot, so I probably go through at least 20 to 25 conversations a day on anything. In some cases, if I needed to go back, yeah, you could do the search, but you might not find it. It's that needle in the haystack kind of thing. But now you could actually pin a chat directly, and it'll show up at the top of your chat list, which is great. I could go back and reference it. So small little things, some cases mean a lot. So I could do this in the iOS and Android app. I could do it on the web and on Atlas as well. So really cool little feature.
Totally. I think it's pretty convenient. In the other news, Amazon appoints longtime AWS executive Peter DeSantis to lead new AI org. And Amazon is also in talks to invest $10 billion in OpenAI as the circular deals stay popular. We often hear about Google and Microsoft in the AI race, but I think Amazon has also found their way back. I think they're doing pretty decently well. Their partnership with Anthropic, now they're trying to do more partnership with OpenAI. They have the Trainium AI chip, which OpenAI is now starting to use for training. Anthropic also uses AWS infrastructure, family in NVIDIA, but I think some AWS as well. I think Amazon is trying to find its way, and they want to make sure that their Nova models are also cutting edge, and that's why these changes, I think, are happening.
Yeah, I'm assuming that means that OpenAI is going to be coming to AWS platform as an endpoint to use at some point.
That's something, a good question, Jimmy. I still haven't found a way. I think Microsoft has done a really tremendous job in the legal. I'm still not sure they have allowed a loophole, because I think Satya very clearly said APIs will run in Azure. Okay. Only ChatGPT is allowed to run outside.
So it's purely just an investment deal rather than coming to their platform.
Yeah, it could be just that.
Speaking of Microsoft, great segue into that one. So obviously there's a tight partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI. Restructured a little bit, but it's day one deployments or day zero deployments on the Microsoft platform. So with GPT-5.2, which is again the latest model, that's now fully integrated into Microsoft 365 Copilot, as well as Copilot Studio. So it brings the two main variants, that being 5.2 Instant and 5.2 Thinking, into both of those different tools. And I actually have been using it for the last, I think I discovered it in there like 3 days ago. So I've been toggling it on and using 5.2 Thinking as my primary model inside of Copilot or Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Do you find it substantially better, Jimmy?
Yeah, hands down. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Okay, another rapid news. New York signs AI safety bill into law. Well, we have been hearing about these things a lot, but why it is important? Because President Trump had signed another executive order just last week, which kind of like bars the states to actually go forward their own AI regulation. So New York State has decided to defy that, and they say that we need this law. It is based on the SB, the law that California Governor Newsom had signed just a few weeks ago. It is based on that. It takes a starting point. It makes it a little bit more stringent, though, in terms of the timeline so we'll see how the federal government is going to react to this and what will happen. But this is the first defiance of that executive order.
So let's get into some launch news. As I mentioned, there's a couple of things that OpenAI did, small little stuff like pinning chats, but they've been busy not only with 5.2 rolling out, but also their coding version of that model. So GPT 5.2 Codex. So OpenAI is actually kind of touting this as their most advanced agentic coding model, which it is, and this is certainly a push to go against coding models, obviously the big model that everyone or a lot of people use are those from Anthropic, that being the Opus 4.5. But this is a very sound model. Depending on which benchmarks you're looking at or which sites or where it is from day to day, this Codex model actually is on par, if maybe not edges out in some cases, the Opus 4.5. So its focus is really to work on long running tasks. So think of this as like the extended sessions that an agent may be running without losing its context. And what that means is it's very suitable for enterprise scale use. So refactoring applications, application migrations, as well as multi-step build features within your apps. So for architects, this is very, very important because earlier coding agents, and I'm not talking that far back, maybe 9 months, a year ago, the models would be really good at isolated tasks, but they would struggle with sustained real world engineering workflows and the things that need to be done. I've seen this as well. I mean, I think, we've had several different episodes talking about, vibe coding and using these agents. So I've been doing this for what seems like a really long time in this space, but over a year already. And, some of the initial tasks, it would be good for 2 or 3 steps. So now I can let my agents run for, walk away for like 45 minutes and it still would be, tackling the task that it needs, which is great because that's what you want. So the 5.2 Codex actually elevates that even more, and it allows for that longer thinking. So more complex. Now, where does this show up? It actually shows up in the benchmarks. So there are specific benchmarks for looking at these agents and how well they do over time. The most notable ones are the SWE Bench Pro and Terminal Bench. So I wouldn't say these are like great leaps in terms of what 5.2 Codex versus some of the earlier recent deployments for those are, but there are incremental gains on those boards. So this signals a more realistic developer experience, quote unquote, or developer mindset to approach and attach these things. There are other things that this Codex model, the 5.2 Codex, brings in: better tool calling, better factual reliability based upon the information, aka the context window, and then additional support for various different Windows environment pieces. So if that wasn't enough, the other thing that OpenAI kind of stressed within the 5.2 Codex is improvements in overall cybersecurity or strength of the model. There's something called capture the flag evaluation, which is more about a defensive security posture and the workflows within that. So it scored very well in that, but there's also other things that they put in: tighter safeguards, also looking at ways of doing tighter trusted access within the applications that it is developing. So these are all great things that are there. Now, this is already out, like I mentioned, so paid ChatGPT users are available to use it, and API access is coming out soon. So one of the things over this weekend, I actually plan on testing this Codex out. I know I went through an exercise with Opus not too long ago. I plan to actually try to do the same thing with this Codex model to see how it compares. So I'll tell you more once I actually dig into using it with some real world context on it. So anyway, bottom line, 5.2 Codex, it really signals a shift towards these coding agents that can really operate on their own reliably and doing things at enterprise scale.
Awesome. And OpenAI, talking about them, they actually launched GPT-Image-1.5 as well. So this is the latest flagship image generation and editing model, step up on the Image 1.0 that they had earlier. It's a multimodal, so text to image to image edit, in painting, out painting, all of those things actually it can do. And it has been received pretty well, I would say. This is actually the Codex for 5.2 and the Image 1.5. Both are a reflection of their code red agenda that they have, right, in terms of not losing the ground to Google, and they're trying to catch up on this one. So Image 1.5 has got a mixed reaction. Some people have said that, okay, it's really good. It's even better than Nano Banana in some of the aspects, while the others say that, nah, it's not as, but it's definitely looks like it is a much better model. And a lot of people have appreciated its thing. Particularly, for example, things like areas where it could be better than even the Nano Banana Pro is, for example, where like the product imagery, for example, creative like campaign visuals, social media graphics, infographic, things like that. It does really, really well. And also remember, Jimmy, they have done actually a deal with the Disney now, right? So I don't know what would that mean. Will Google have to stop allowing any generation of images with the Disney characters or Disney theme? And will the Image 1.5, that part is not yet clear, but that could have an impact on these things as well.
Yeah, that's still running through the court cases between Disney and Google. The one thing that I'll throw out there, you mentioned like its perception or the way people are actually using it. It is top on the leaderboard, at least as of this morning. I refreshed it. It's roughly about 30 points higher than Gemini 3, Pro Image, which is not a banana, and even higher against Flux, which is, Flux 2 that just came out recently as well. So GPT-Image-1.5 is top of the heap as of right now. I'm sure something will change along the way, but it is up there.
Yeah, and for our some of the tech specs, Jimmy, it supports PNG, JPG, WebP page as well, and larger image sizes. It supports multiple resolutions. Actually, it in some of the benchmark as you were referring to, right? It outperformed actually Google's Nano Banana Pro in, like, for example, in prompt alignment and things like that. It has more instruction following. I would say that is what it's supposed to be doing better than the Nano Banana Pro. It's in terms of the price, the input tokens is like $8, and the output token is $32. But it's available as an image 1.5 API, which you can use from the Azure, or of course in the Chat GPT. Now they have actually another I would say menu item which says image, and then you go there and then you can actually see the sample images. So I would say they are not giving up on the image yet, right? They are going to fight back, and this is what is reflected in this news.
Yeah, and just small little side note too, they revamped their inside of ChatGPT. Again, if you're a user of that, there's an image gallery now. So it's sort of like an app within the app for imaging. Anyway, let's talk about Google. So Google actually announced a new model under Gemini 3, which is the Gemini 3 Flash. So this is a very effective model, and you got to think about where this fits. You've got Gemini 3 Pro, and then you've got Flash underneath that. And I equate this to, these are the worker models for those agents that we were just talking about at the beginning of the show. What's great about this is that the Flash, or the Gemini 3 Flash, actually brings in pro level reasoning capabilities, but with the speed and efficiency and cost efficiencies in that model. So it makes it a very wise model choice, even in the enterprise, for building these agentic systems, things that need real-time decision making, and just high throughput or high volume automation workflows. It's going to be really good at that. So Flash is really engineered and designed to do both for its intelligence and the responsiveness of that, and being able to work natively with multimodal. So again, these are one of the things that I'm still looking for OpenAI to come out with, but this handles multimodal input, things like documents, structured data, but also video. So it's a very capable model in that space. So when you think about it from an architect perspective, like, what do we care about? What is an unlock? Well, it's that lower latency. So customer-facing agents and things that you might be building, it's going to see faster response, predictable cost performance. So it's low cost. You can see some of the things on this on what I'm showing here. So Gemini 3 Flash, it's 50 cents for 1 million tokens in, $3 out. When you compare that to like Gemini 3 Pro, obviously way less in terms of cost. Compare that against Claude Sonnet 4.5, it's cheaper than that. So it's got a great price point for what it's capable of doing. And again, I go back from an enterprise architect perspective. It's like, where do I plug in the right model for its capability, but also at the cost? And like I said before, it's able to reason. So it's a reasoning model. So it can handle multi-step automation and things that you're trying to build. And it's production ready. I mean, this is not like the first quote unquote Flash model. So this has gone through a couple of different revisions and iterations already. So they've, kind of quote unquote worked out the bugs. And as I already mentioned, strong multimodal processing. So you don't need multiple different models to handle specialized tasks. It's all within it. So when Google kind of put this out there, they didn't just come out and just mention this. They had several different companies that had already been using it, everything from like Salesforce, Workday, Replit, Box. So they're all reporting measurable gains in the way that they're using it for coding accuracy, or just the way that they're actually using it for document intelligence or extraction across those, as well as those long horizon agentic orchestration workflows and things that I was just mentioned before. So it's available in all the things that you would think: Vertex AI, Gemini Enterprise in the CLI, as well as in the AI Studio. So bottom line, it's a great new tool for folks to actually look at and use within their workflows, especially obviously if you're on the Google stack and using their tools.
Jamie, this is fantastic. One of the things that I'm observing on this chart that Gemini has put, why did they put Cloud Sonnet? Why not Cloud Haiku? I think is it like kind of a misleading, or is it some specific feature?
No, I think they were trying to show that it's very powerful. I mean, if you look at some of the measurements and the things from like Humanity's last exam, it's beating Sonnet. So like, it's at a price point that is lower than Sonnet, and it's beating it by not just a little bit, but a lot. Like you look at Sonnet 13.7 on the Humanity's last exam versus 33, and you look at some of the things like the like obviously like the MMMU Pro, it just blows it away. So I think they're trying to show, hey, we've got something that's more powerful than Sonnet. So if you're building, your agents, this is a better choice, and it's cheaper. So because Haiku is obviously even less than the Sonnet side.
Okay.
By the way, one last thing. As I mentioned, the LM Arena. So the two areas where this shines, and again, Gemini 3 Flash has not been around that long, but it's already topping the leaderboard. It's in the top 3 for just text inferencing. It's number 3. And you look at what it's behind. It's the Gemini 3 Pro, 4.1 thinking, and then you got Flash. The 5.1. So 5.2 is not on here. In my opinion, 5.2 is a very good model, but it's way above the 5.1 high. And when you look at vision, I'm not surprised by this. The vision and the other multimodal capabilities, but Flash is number 2 and number 3. So it's a very capable model, and people obviously are liking it inside the LM Arena.
Awesome, great. I think I would say good week with some significant launches. I think if not groundbreaking, I think it was pretty good step up that OpenAI and Google have been doing. Google also actually did another Google Lab release, right? It's not out in the commercial yet. It's waitlisted, but you could have something called a Disco browser. And Disco browser is basically a new browsing experience. It's an AI-powered web browser. They're not trying to replace Chrome, but I think definitely want to future-proof this. And it's a Gen AI-based web browser. What it does is when you make a search, and you may say that, okay, let's say you're doing a trip planning, right? And you're searching for the areas where you want to go. It will ask you, do you want to use the Gen tab experience? And Gen tab is basically, it will generate the tabs based on what you're searching for. And it's going to make it an AI-generated interactive mini app for what you're trying to do on those tabs. And for example, if you're looking for the trip planning, it will generate a mini app which will have then the date picker. It will show you a calendar view where you can pick the dates, move the dates. You can see the interactive map. You can see the panes on the map, which you can then drag and drop and put that into a kind of a area where you can, for example, that will become your itinerary. You could also say that, okay, show me the calendar with the weather information, so it will change. So it basically becomes an app. Okay, so whatever purpose it is, whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to learn some science concept, for example, it will create an app and show you how that interaction is happening, for example, between molecules and all those things, right? So it's not just a page, it becomes an app which becomes interactive, and then you can also use the output, etc. Of course, it's based on the wait list, so we have to sign it up. I did sign up, and you don't know when you will get the access to it, but it looks like a fantastic, different and innovative experience in the future to interact with what you want to do. And that's a wrap on the week, Jamie. I think we covered a lot of ground today. Yeah. Happy New Year, Jamie. Happy New Year to all of you, unless we see you in another episode. But we all will take a break and see you next year.
See you next year. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.